Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Reserved Investments. And if I'm doing this properly, you can see my screen, you can hear my voice, but unfortunately, at least for this video, you won't be able to see me. What we are going to be doing in this video is we are going to be going over some of the highlighted results of the recent Hake's auction that featured part 2 of the fabulous Jeff Jacob toy collection. Now, if you don't know what the Jeff Jacob collection is, it is a multi-million dollar graded vintage toy collection that covers almost all of the hottest toy lines from the 1980s and early 1990s, with a major emphasis on, of course, vintage Kenner Star Wars toys and action figures, which is really what we're going to be focusing on today. So I'm doing this video to take you guys behind the scenes and show you some of the incredibly, in certain cases, as you're going to see with this first one, unbelievably high prices that were paid for some of this stuff. And we're going to also answer the question that a lot of you are probably wondering: did Sean of Reserved Investments bid on anything in this auction? And if so, did he win anything in this auction? So first up, file this one under completely ridiculous. File this one under I have no idea what happened here. I cannot figure it out as an analyst in the antiques and collectibles trade. So if you don't know what I'm showing you on screen, this is a 1983 Return of the Jedi Jabba the Hutt action playset. It is graded by AFA in 85 condition, which is near mint plus condition, and it was released by Kenner Toys back in 1983 with, of course, the launch of the Return of the Jedi movie. Now, there is nothing rare at all about this playset. As a matter of fact, back when Return of the Jedi hit the theaters, if you would have walked into your local Toys R Us store, your Lionel Kitty City, your KB Toys, or any department store for that matter, they would have had a ton of these on store shelves. And for less than $10, you could have took one of these home with you back then. Well, today, at auction, this particular piece, in AFA 85 near mint plus condition, sold for $38,940. Now, if you look here where it says value code, believe it or not, this is the pre-auction estimate, and this is spot on. This piece, even in AFA 85 condition, was expected to only sell for $1,000 to $2,000. As a matter of fact, even if I'm not going to bother to look up population reports for a lot of this stuff because we're just doing an end of auction review, we're not really doing the analysis behind it. But it even says here, at the time of cataloging, only 9 examples of this item are in AFA 85 grade, according to the current population reports, with none higher. Well, even when they cataloged this, that was already factored in to the pre-auction estimate of $1,000 to $2,000 that they assigned for this item. As a matter of fact, if we go back, if we really wanted to, and we did a price history of this item, you can see a ton of other examples in AFA 80, even in AFA 85, that have sold for well under $5,000 for this same exact item. Now, as you can see where my cursor is, there were 32 bids placed on this item. That means there were a couple of individuals that really wanted this item for whatever reason. They obviously, in my opinion, overvalued this. And this is where you kind of have to be a little bit of a detective and understand how these markets work. If you're sitting on one of these items in AFA 85 and you see the end of auction results here where this piece sold for close to $39,000, I'm sorry to tell you, it does not mean that the item that you have in your collection that may be graded in exact AFA 85 grade is worth anywhere near this amount. This was just one of those black swan events where a couple of people went at it and somebody really was willing to overpay for this piece. Now, I talk about this a lot in my channel. Right now, vintage toys, vintage action figures, especially from the coveted vintage Kenner Star Wars line, the prices have exploded in the past few years. This is one of the hottest markets in the entire antiques and collectibles trade right now, and I don't understand why more people that are active like me in the overall antiques and collectibles trade are talking about this, because these prices are in the stratosphere. And it's very concerning to me because I think a lot of these vintage toys are entering what I would call speculative frenzy phase, which is similar but not equivalent to what we saw with graded video games several years back. Now, obviously, this market, from what I can see, there's really nothing, how do I want to say this, to my knowledge, going on behind the scenes that would cause prices to pop like this. So it's very interesting as we go along here in today's video. You're going to see some high prices being paid for some of this stuff. So we're getting closer to answering the question, did Sean bid on anything in this auction? And more importantly, did Sean win anything in this auction? Obviously, I would have never even bidded on a piece like this. First of all, an item like this has a lot of risks. This item, I don't know if you can see it in any of the pictures. This is actually tape sealed. If any of this tape that you can see where my cursor is, I don't know how well you can see it on camera. If any of these pieces of tape dry out and this item pops open, guess what? It's no longer factory sealed anymore, and you just paid $39,000 for an open toy, pretty much. So you have to be very careful if you're investing in pieces like this. A lot of the vintage Kenner Star Wars line, back in the day, I hate to say this, but a lot of the stuff was cheaply made. A lot of it was just sealed with tape. A lot of it they used off-the-shelf glue, off-the-shelf items, to the point where today we are seeing some of these items deteriorate over time just because these items were designed to be ripped open and played with. These items were not designed to be stored as museum pieces. So let's go to our next auction we want to go through here. And this is the coveted Darth Vader 12-back double telescoping action figure in AFA 80 condition. And this is a major piece. I'm going to show it on the screen here. There are only 4 of these in this grade. This is an AFA 80. So it is just in near mint condition. You can even see the subgrades here. The card is a grade of 80. The bubble is a grade of 80. The figure is actually, though, an 85. And what makes this very rare and sought after, of course, this features the very controversial telescoping lightsaber. If you don't know the story, basically it's, let's see if it shows it. I don't want to play the video because I don't know if I'm going to get hit with a copy strike from Hake if I do that. So I don't want to click the video here. But for those that don't know the story, the original double telescoping sabers were discontinued shortly after the original 12 action figures in the vintage Star Wars line hit store shelves because it was deemed a child safety hazard risk. So that's why these are so sought after. And outside of the 3 figures that were released with double telescoping sabers, you have, of course, Luke Skywalker. You then have Darth Vader, which is featured here. And you also have Obi-Wan. Darth Vader is the second rarest. I think, if I recall correctly, Obi-Wan is the most sought after. Darth Vader is the second most sought after. And Luke Skywalker, unfortunately, is the more common of the 3. But he still commands a significant amount when that piece does come up for auction. Now, this particular piece sold for, with the buyer's premium, over $130,000. Now, I had several clients that utilized my consulting services that were interested in this piece. And the best advice that I gave them is I predicted this piece was going to sell for close to $100,000 or more. So I was pretty much spot on the money here. I honestly do not think, again, much like the Jabba the Hutt playset that sold for 40 grand, I really question when we start hitting these stratosphere amounts for items like this. It is true, and I want to be very clear here. This particular item is extremely scarce, unlike the Jabba the Hutt playset. This particular item, if I recall correctly, there are only, I think it actually says here, there are only 4 examples of this in AFA 80, and there's just one graded higher. I think there's one out there that is either in AFA 85 or 90, if I remember correctly. So don't get me wrong, this is a very scarce piece. But honestly, I don't think, in my opinion, again, this is just my opinion, the market obviously does not agree with me, but in my opinion, I would not pay over $130,000 for this item. Now, to be fair, if this item sold between $50,000 to $60,000, I would consider that a very fair, if not a bargain price for this item. But we're looking at an environment where this piece sold for pretty much twice that price. It is completely insane for what this item sold for. Now, there are critics out there, and I do get emails like this all the time. Well, Sean, look at the prices being paid for rare coins, or even if we want to stick to pop culture collectibles, rare comic books, high-grade comic books. Isn't an action figure like this that only sold for $130,000 when we have comic books that are selling for, low 7 figures, isn't this a steal? And I have to state, you got to understand the risks with owning an item like this. Case in point, if you have this item and this bubble here starts to yellow, this item is no longer going to qualify as an AFA 80 condition item. If the bubble here that is attached to the card backing starts to come undone, this item is no longer going to qualify as an AFA 80 graded item. That's why there's a lot of risk in this marketplace. You have to be careful. If you're one of these people that are just, because you love Star Wars, because you have more money than most, you go, oh my gosh, I can own this piece. I'm going to outbid everybody else, and I'm going to pay a record price of over $130,000 for this item. The person who won here, I'm going to be very honest, is not only Hake's auction, but Jeff Jacob was a genius for deciding to sell his collection at this time, why prices are at all-time highs. This is why I tell you guys, you always sell into the hype. This is a prime example of what I mean. Again, I have never conversed with Jeff Jacob. I don't even know if he realizes my channel exists. I don't even know if he knows who I am. That said, I think he made an excellent decision if he was willing to let go of these pieces to sell right now, because this collection, he is going to net a fortune on this collection. I mean, it's already valued in the multi-million-dollar range. He is pretty much set up for life. His kids are set up for life. Pretty much everybody he knows that he cares about in his immediate family, because of the sale of this collection alone, regardless of any other investments or businesses he has and owns, he did very well on deciding to sell right now. So let's turn our attention to one of my favorite vintage Star Wars figures. And this is, of course, the coveted vinyl cape Jawua 12-back figure. And this is in AFA 85 near mint plus condition. And this is an excellent piece in my opinion, to be fair here. The card is graded at a solid 85. The bubble is an AFA 90. The figure is a 90 as well. When they grade this piece, they take into account the subgrades, and then they come up with a grade, overall grade of the piece. This obviously is an 85, near mint plus condition. Now this piece sold for $18,170. Honestly, in this environment, I would have expected this to sell for a little more. I'm not going to lie. As a matter of fact, even if you look at Hake's pre-auction estimate, which they put at $10,000 to $20,000 for this piece, this item sold within the estimate. So this item really wasn't bid up to crazy heights like the Darth Vader piece here, or heaven forbid, the Jabba the Hutt playset. This item actually sold for a reasonable amount. That said, you also have to read the item description. Slight age discoloration on the cape's lapel. This is something that can become a problem for figures like this. There is a known phenomenon that affects a lot of vintage toys, especially a lot of the vintage Star Wars toys, that is known as frosting. If frosting develops on an item, potentially over time, it gets worse and worse. So putting that in the item description, why Hake's is being 100% honest, it could have swayed some people from going all in on this item. Now, to give Hake's credit, a lot of auction companies do not do that. A lot of auction companies just tell you the item was graded by AFA. It's an 85 near mint plus condition. It is what it is. Look at the pictures and judge accordingly. So I do give credit to Hake's for calling out that detail that states slight age discoloration on the cape's lapel, because it does matter. Remember, guys, my biggest problem with these market is how fragile these items are, especially over the long term. People who are investing in this market need to be aware of the risks of investing in these pieces. Next up, we have the Darth Vader TIE Fighter in AFA 85 near mint plus condition with none noted higher in the AFA population reports. And this item sold for a price of $21,240, which does include, of course, all the prices that I'm quoting, includes the 18% buyer's premium that Hake's charges to the successful bidder in any of these auctions. Now, this is an excellent piece. Again, this is an item that sold just upwards of the pre-auction estimate. In all honesty, many years ago, you could easily get these for roughly $5,000, even if you were able to find one in AFA 85. These were not as coveted as they are today. These particular items, though, are being bought up by a lot of hardcore investors. There's a lot of high-profile investors that are now playing in the vintage toy marketplace, and I want to make that very clear. That's why this piece sold for the price it did. And I'll go through the pictures here with you guys, because you guys can tell this item does really have that feeling of nostalgia. If you were a kid back in the day, and if I recall correctly, this item was released in 1979. So this was part of the original Star Wars line. So we're talking, this was well before the Return of the Jedi. Obviously, it was several years before The Empire Strikes Back. So this would have been at the time when this was available, 1979, was pretty much when Kenner just started to ramp up production for Star Wars toys and play sets. So this item is somewhat scarce. But I still think at over $21,000, in my opinion, it still is selling at a significant premium, even in today's market. That's all I'm going to say. And I know there's going to be people out there that disagree with me, but I would not be comfortable paying over $21,000 for this particular piece. So let's go on to the next item I want to go over. Now, full disclosure, I never liked the 12-inch action figures that were part of the original vintage Kenner Star Wars line of toys. This is an IG-88 12-inch series action figure, and this piece sold for a little over $10,000. Now, to be fair, Hake's did assign a pre-auction estimate of this to $10,000 to $20,000. So this really didn't sell for an extreme premium. This is just one of those items. I would never pay $10,000 for this item. These items are not my favorites. And number two, there is a lot of risks with these being 12-inch series of action figures. There's more risk if you're attempting to invest in them over the long term. In other words, because they're larger than 3 3/4-inch action figures, there's a lot that can go wrong, especially if you're attempting to keep them in near mint, factory sealed, graded condition. So that's why I don't like investing in these particular pieces. However, if you look at the piece, it really looks spectacular. I mean, we can all agree, if you're a huge Star Wars fan and you put that on a shelf, that is going to get some eyeballs. I mean, people are going to look at that and they're going to go, wow, that is an incredible vintage piece that really harkens back to the Empire Strikes Back era. I mean, we all can agree on that. So here is the grading label. Again, this was released in 1980. Obviously, we all know IG-88 was one of the bounty hunters. So he was featured for a little bit in the Empire Strikes Back movie. And of course, what makes this piece also somewhat desirable is the fact it's not only an 85 near mint plus, but it also has all subgrades of 85. So it's not like one of these is an 80 and the rest are 85s. This is a solid 85 near mint plus condition piece. So the person who wanted this or is quote unquote attempting to invest in this piece, he paid pretty much what it was worth. We'll see how it does in the years to come. I mean, honestly, again, this would not be a piece that I would consider investing in just due to the risks. So let's go to several other items here. Now we're getting into the proof cards. And this is something that I touched on in my last video. So I want to make sure that I circle back and show you guys what some of these pieces went for. So this is, of course, the coveted Star Wars Revenge of the Jedi Stormtrooper proof card in AFA 85 near mint plus condition. To be fair, I expected this piece to go somewhere around this amount because anytime any of the stormtroopers or snowtroopers, if they ever show up on a proof card, people tend to overpay for those pieces because the stormtroopers, the snowtroopers, they're very identifiable in the Star Wars universe. So if someone's going to go after a proof card and they only want a couple examples, they're not going for a full set. They're either going to go after one of the main characters like Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Han Solo, maybe Darth Vader, possibly Boba Fett, but they're also going to potentially want either a Stormtrooper or a Snowtrooper proof card as well. So that's why these always carry a premium, usually when they come up for bid. Now, to be fair, Hake did put a pre-value auction estimate on this between $2,000 to $5,000. Well, this item sold for $3,504. Now, honestly, if I was going to bid on this piece, this I did not bid on, but I would have been really in limbo on this. I think when you start to get above $3,000, $3,200 for a piece like this, you're kind of taking a little bit of a risk. You're tying up a lot of money in a very niche item where I think we have years to go before the market catches up with these particular pieces being worth $4,000 or $5,000. And make no mistake, if you look at completed auction listings, you will see there are examples of these that do sell for $4,000 to $5,000. However, I was not comfortable bidding on this item simply because the winning bid ended up at $3,500. So I did not bid on this piece. So make no mistake, I did not bid on or win this particular item, even though I will admit, it's a beautiful piece. If you're into Revenge of the Jedi proof cards, you could do a lot worse than adding this piece to your collection, even if you were the individual that paid a little over $3,500 for this item. Next up, let's take a look at this particular proof card. Now, I went over this in the previous video I did on this auction because this is one of those proof cards that really doesn't come up for bid all that often. There are examples out there. This is the coveted Star Wars Revenge of the Jedi R2-D2 with sensor scope proof card in AFA 85 condition. I will show it on the screen so you guys can see it. There it is in all of its glory. And here is the grading label. And again, this item was already starting to get bid up when I did that original video that I did several weeks back when this auction first opened. I think back then the price was at right around $1,700. Well, you can see where it ended up. It ended up right around $2,400. Now, to be fair, this really isn't a bad price for this item. To be fair, if I was going to make an offer on this, let's say that one of these came up for eBay and it was an 85 graded item, just like this one, AFA graded 85. This came up on eBay. I would have no problem paying $2,200 for that item on eBay. I think at $2,400, you're really not in the danger zone. Again, Hake did assign a pre-auction estimate of $2,000 to $5,000, but it was just a little bit rich for my blood, meaning I did not feel comfortable bidding on this piece. Do I regret it? It's possible, in all honesty, in the months to come, in the years to come, I may look back at this and go, you know, now these pieces are selling for anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000. I could have had one for a little bit more. We don't know this, but let's assume I would have put a bid in and I would have got it for the next bid increment. Let's just say that that would have happened where this person wouldn't have came back and outbid me. Maybe I would have got this for $2,400 or $2,500, $2,600. Who knows? At that point, that is a reasonable price to pay for this item. It's just I wasn't comfortable when this auction went off putting in a bid, getting in a potential bidding war, and or bidding this person up or paying a premium to get it at that particular point in time. So this is one of those situations where I'll look at the market and I'll go, I'm not comfortable bidding on this piece. I won't even pull the trigger. So Hake has no idea whether or not I was interested in this because I did not pull the trigger. I did not put a bid in for this item. I want to go over one more because this one is quite interesting to me because this one, I kind of regret the fact that I didn't bid on it. Now, this is a Revenge of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker, Hoth Battle Gear Proof Card in AFA 85 condition. And this sold for $1,949.30. This really was a good deal when you think about it. Because, again, this is a main character. This is Luke Skywalker in Hoth gear. We all know that's what he wore during Empire Strikes Back, the famous Hoth battle scene. And, again, this is an investment grade piece. This is 85 near mint plus. This one actually, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I screwed up and forgot to bid on this piece. So this was one of those items that I was going to bid on. And now looking back, I kicked myself for not bidding on it because it sold for under $2,000. Now, to be fair, there's no guarantee if I would have bidded on this piece. There's no guarantee that the person who I was bidding against would have let me have it with just one bid above what they bidded on it. So in other words, we could have entered a bidding war and this piece may have then sold for $2,500, $2,600, $2,700 or more. We don't know what the future would have held. But this is one of those pieces where I have to say the winning bidder did great on this item. And this is something that I really think was a steal, near a steal. I don't want to say a steal, but near a steal at this price. To be fair, if you could have got this for like $1,700, that would of course be what I consider a true bargain. But paying $1,949.30, which already includes the buyer's premium, you really can't go wrong for getting a Revenge of the Jedi proof card of Luke Skywalker in AFA 85 for under $2,000. Let's be realistic here. Now, of course, the buyer's going to have to pay shipping. He's probably going to have to pay sales tax too, depending on his circumstance, depending on where he's bidding from. But overall, this was the best deal out of all these pieces that I've just shown you. Now, the question then remains, did I bid on anything? Did I win anything on this auction? No, I did not win anything in this auction. What really turned me off when I saw what some of these pieces were going for, like the Jabba the Hutt action playset, even the Darth Vader 12-back double telescoping figure in AFA 80 for $130, I really got a little bit apprehensive. My anxiety started rearing, and I said, this auction's going to be a blowout. And that's what pulled me away from some of these pieces. But I will say, to sum this up, in my opinion, this Luke Skywalker Revenge of the Jedi proof card was a steal at this price. I'm not going to say it was a true bargain, but paying less than $2,000 for this item, you're not going to do better than that in today's market. Even if you find this on eBay, even if you find this on, a vintage collecting forum, someone's probably going to want more than $2,000 for this piece in today's market. So that pretty much sums up my review of the Jeff Jacob Collection Part 2. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Also, I do value your feedback. Are you guys getting anything out of these videos where I share my screen? I know some of you don't even watch all my videos to the end, so if you are listening to me rattle on right now, I just would like to know your feedback because I need to know if I should devote time to making more videos like this or pull back. I know that a lot of my audience isn't really into the vintage toy marketplace. A lot of you guys would rather me spend the time going over vintage Pokemon cards or comic books or coins or currency or other type of items that make up the overall antiques and collectibles trade. I just started with the toy market because it was one of the easiest markets for me to show you how I analyze prices in these markets. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you are subscribed to this channel, perhaps I will see you in another upcoming video. Thanks for watching and have a great day.